Hey, Stoney here with another game of Mechabellum, and in this game I'll walk you through when to take a tech or specifically when not to take a tech. Let's go. Alright, at the bottom here I'm playing as a Typhoon Specialist. My opponent Rivella is playing as a Supply Specialist. I start off with Balls and Fangs. Not the most stellar start, but we can make it work with the ASIM aggro with the Balls and Fangs. When I use these two units in ASIM, I like to have the balls almost at the bottom of the fence. So if you're looking at the top here, right, the balls were almost near at the very end of the fence. I like to have the fence in vertical configuration. And the purpose of this setup is so that when I do engage my opponent, I'm assuming they're mostly going to be near the tower. My balls will take the first hit, allowing the fans to actually do its damage. I don't have any chaff clear in round one, so these fans are just going to be very useful in terms of staying alive and chaff clearing for me. My opponent is going with hounds and double sledges. Hounds and double sledges, they're both really annoying to deal with for steel balls because you have to log on to them individually. At lower levels, the steel balls do have a slight advantage over sledgehammers. And if your steel balls are one level ahead, then it's very difficult for sledgehammers to kill them effectively. However, the same can be said for sledges that are one level ahead. All right, round two, we got our first unit drop. Fire Badger's good, but I think Wraith Ball is just a classic combination. Wraith is there to clear all sorts of chaff. The balls is there to kill anything that has a lot of HP. And also, if you look at the range for the Wraith and Ball, so Wraith is 60 meters, the Ball is 45. Once they move up, so in this configuration, the Ball will probably move ahead of the Wraith at around here. So what that means is your Wraith will actually shoot from relative safety. My opponent took the Wraith as well, which is a good option because that was the only air unit offered. So if you didn't take Wraith and if you didn't take Marksman, you might be in for air cheese. The problem with my opponent taking Wraith is just that I have bodies in front of my Wraith and he doesn't. So I get to win that fight. However, can my single Wraith actually kill everything here? Maybe. We'll see the timing of this tower. Okay, not the greatest timing, but that's all right. Okay, lots of good options here. Advanced power system is really good for the aggro player, but I feel like our armies are already clashing pretty easily. Nano repair kit is also pretty sweet if you want to put them on things like a Wraith. I took the Assault Scorpion mostly as a reactive response to my opponent because my opponent has a lot more reason to take Assault Scorpion than I do because of the steel balls. And if he's got the Assault Scorpion and I don't, and I can't really answer that, it's I don't want to be in that position. So I'm fully prepared to transition out of steel balls into Scorpion. Scorpion Wraith is also playable, especially on aggro, especially with the Assault Scorpion, because neither of our units have a lot of range, so we just have to rely on our speed to get in front of my opponent's army and do massive damage. Now, in this turn, I was expecting a Scorpion somewhere here, and what I didn't expect my opponent to do is to put in more anti-air, so I've decided to just add a few more air units of my own. Phoenixes are great into this Wraith, which is currently his primary chaff clear here. They are also great if there's a Scorpion right here. Okay, so it turns out there's no Scorpion. It's just going to be a cheeky missile. That's fine by me. These are already level 2 balls, so they will survive a single missile. Phoenixes are taking down this Wraith in record speed, which means my Wraith will get free reign on pretty much everything on the ground here. Really good. And as of right now, the only anti-air for my opponent is, or rather are, these fangs, so they're not really good. And this time, the tower timing is a lot better, so by the time they get tower, I would have cleared up everything on this side. All right, we'll get into round 4. Round 4 is usually a tech round, so we have to make a decision here. First of all, cards. I am Typhoon spec, which means I do get the Typhoon, and I think between the haste and the improved fire control, I prefer the haste a little bit more on the Typhoon simply because of his movement speed boost. So now this Typhoon moves at 14 meters per second, almost catching up to the steel balls, which move at 16 meters per second. For a unit that don't have a lot of range, you have to compensate with speed. I don't think it needs even more damage, considering the haste module already gives it 40%. So the speed is king here. Looking on the other side, I was talking about getting a technology, so I could take a technology on this rate and just going harder onto the rate, or I could take a technology on the balls. First of all, let's talk about the balls. The balls is risky because I know that my opponent has Assault Scorpion, which means the moment I click on any sort of tech on the balls, boom, here comes the Assault Scorpion. Assault Scorpion is like a whole degree of difficulty when it comes to countering them with steel balls just because of how quickly they shoot. So it's very risky to get technology on the balls. On the Wraith, on the other hand, range would be a no-brainer. The only reason I didn't take range yet is because, well, you take range for 2 reasons. One is you take range to reposition your army composition. So, for example, let's say you're running Fort Mustang, right? The moment you take range on your fort, your Mustangs run forward, exposing themselves and probably get themselves killed. So in that case, before you take the range on your fortress, you want to take the range on your Mustangs. So in this case, is the ball wraith combination. Do I need to reposition? No, because I don't have range on my balls. So that's the first reason. The second reason for when you're taking range is so that you can hit your opponent's units a little bit earlier, right? 40 meters is pretty good. That's 4 seconds of travel time for this wraith. And the reason I didn't take range on this wraith is because, well, I was counting, like, do I need that additional 4 seconds in order to get there? And the answer is no. The wraith is already close enough to my enemy's army. I don't need it to shoot further, and I don't need to protect it because it's already protected by my steel balls. So that's my rationale for not taking a technology on the wraith. As for the rest of the units, I don't have a lot of units variety. I have like a single squad of Typhoons, so it's usually not advisable to take a single technology on a single unit, unless it's like a war factory, but that's different. All right, round 5. I have a cheeky cheese. I know there was a missile here, and this is a psychology that you can exploit, especially at the higher levels. People put a missile here to discourage you from flanking, so they're not really expecting any sort of flank because they know that the missile will take care of it, and use that to your advantage. You'll flank anyways. You'll put a crawler at the front, Phoenix at the back, mobile beacon to the tower, and that way you're going to get a cheeky tempo win here. All right, just looking at the army on the right, I mean, this raid is doing just fine without range because my opponent's crawlers kept streaming in. This raid is sitting where it needs to be, taking care of all this chaff, no problem whatsoever. The cheese worked. We took the tower, which means now I got a stream of crawler coming into this tower, which means the phoenixes themselves are not able to clear effectively. So yeah, so far no tech is required. Now, of course, there is a moment where you need to multiply the effectiveness of your units by taking technology. All right, got a bunch of units that's offered. I think Melting Point was interesting, but my opponent already have Phoenixes with tech. Wasp is probably the most interesting thing for me because I'm expecting Melting Point. I already see Phoenixes, so having some sort of shield at the front is not bad at all. My opponent also took the Wasps. Right now at round 6, already within a gut shot range for my opponent. He's finally adding these Scorpions. I think it might be a little too late. I've added a single Phoenix on the side because I saw the Wraith from the last turn, and the fact that my Typhoon was clinging onto it for a little bit too long. So I added the Phoenixes here to deal with the Wraith, and also another Wraith here just to deal with more chaff there. I'm not too worried about more hounds, I think the Wraith would deal with them just fine. I'm not too worried about the wasps. I think they'll do it just fine. Double missiles, because it's the final round, just to give it a little bit more tempo here. All right, if I'm going to slow this down a little bit, let's talk a little bit more about technology. I did not take any technology in this game. Why didn't I take any technology in this game? Well, we already talked about the interaction between steel balls and Wraith, right? To recap, the steel balls, I didn't take tech because I don't want to invest into a unit that can be easy to counter by the Assault Scorpion. The Wraith, I didn't take a tech, well, partially because it didn't really need range. It was clearing just fine, and I only had a single unit, right? So it's not a big investment. It's not a worthy investment if I'm not prepared to go hard into the Wraith, which at the point I was not. Did not take a technology on a Typhoon, once again, single unit. And I did not take a technology on a Phoenix, because the Phoenixes were doing just fine behind the Wraith, behind the steel balls. If my opponent has started to add level 2 Scorpions, I might be tempted of taking Charge Shot, which reduces his range, but they will still stay behind the Wraith. But he never did that, right? His board was just not calling for a technology. Level 2 Phoenixes one-shot these tanks, no problem. Level 2 Phoenixes two-shots this Wraith, no problem. So they're doing just fine. There's no need to take technology. So the takeaway here is, if there's like, yes, technologies are good to have, but they're also very expensive. And instead of using the money to buy technology, you can redirect that money to either higher units at a higher level. So level 2 rates are extremely powerful, or you can simply buy more units. Because my opponent actually took technologies on the Scorpions, the Hounds, and the Phoenixes. And I'm not entirely sure that was required. If anything, I probably won't take the range on the Scorpion. These are Assault Scorpions. Yes, they have absolute terrible range, but they also have a lot of HP. So I want to use my Scorpion as a big tank to protect the Hounds and the Phoenixes, right? All right, I hope you enjoyed this game and a little lesson on when to take or when not to take technology. And if you want to see another video, here's one for you, and I will see you on the next one.
Prepare your tactics. Mechabellum's calling. Deploy your fortress. The battlefield's alive with swarms.